He always does this to us.
And then awkward silence. Good evening, everybody. How are you? We're unable to pull up anything in chat because, our illustrious leader has now disappeared. He's vaporized into the ether again. As he slowly...
And yet the show is running a lot more efficiently.
That's odd how that happens.
It feels better. It's flowing better. We stay on topic.
We don't interrupt.
Wait, we have topics on this show? I never knew we had those before.
And yet something suddenly feels like it's going wrong again. Oh, no, it feels better. It feels a lot better.
I feel the good rapport coming back.
Whew. How you fellas doing?
Doing good. I spent a lot of time inside my computer case and realized I need a new computer case.
So you got it looks like, Nick, you got a new computer setup? That's what
I got a new graphics card. I have been rocking a 2000 series card. It was a 2080 Ti, so it was still holding up pretty daggum well. But I wanted things like ray tracing, and I knew a bunch of games were coming out that it was probably going to start lagging behind. And I usually skip every other generation or so of graphics cards.
All right, the gag is ran.
Go away.
Oh, now it goes downhill.
I think his batteries are running out, man. I had to clap 3 times to get him to start.
So anyway, I bought a new big beefy card that I threw in this thing, which is running really well. It's surprising how poorly Gotham Knights runs, regardless of what card you put in there.
Yeah, well, welcome to Gotham Knights.
I had this thing just cranked, and it's okay, I'm doing 100 frames a second, which is what my monitor is maxed out at doing. Right? And then it dropped down to 70 on the bike, which was good for being on the bike because it was 30 before. And then I got in a tunnel, and all of a sudden, for no reason, while I'm just walking, it went down to 40, and I'm like, why? There's nothing here. Why? I'm confused. I'm so confused.
Rab, did you do any new modifications to your computer?
You guys talk numbers about graphic cards and GPUs and CPUs and special victim units, and I have no idea.
Okay.
I break my computer when I open it up, so I just don't.
That's the new format of this show. We talk tech spec, hardware only.
Yeah.
Nick,
only new games and tech specs.
I know what I'm talking about. So I would say that card you bought probably runs you a good solid $75, $80. Is that true, Nick?
Oh yeah. Nothing but the best, all the way up to 350.
Yeah, my computer runs a little hot. There's a little mouse that loves to curl up in there. It's all.
No, you did.
Well, I mean that is your CPU, sir. I mean, I upgraded to the gerbil. I mean, you peasants and your mice. I mean,
well, they don't have the same cash that you do. DJC, did you get any computer modifications on Tech Talk tonight?
I did. I wanted to say hello to Cameron Hayes and everyone else. Amico air guitar. And everyone that I highlighted. So, speaking of getting stuff, I do have to show this, and
That's not what we were talking about.
Yeah, I know. It's exactly. I'm just taking a complete 180 and heading in the.
It's almost like you're pretending it's your show. That's
right.
Almost.
So, back to retro. Look what I found in box at a local game store on the way back from my buddy's house today.
A video game?
Inbox Enduro, one of my favorite Atari games of all time. And I'm like, the only 2 box games they had in this store.
Oh, okay. I know that.
A racing game, yep. This is the only 2 box games in the store. It's 2 of my all-time favorites. Complete Inbox Midnight Magic. Pinball game for 2600. One of the greats.
How many times have you referred to that as your evening with a lady? I'm just curious.
Well, it's going to be that this evening. I'm going to be having some midnight magic.
I too found my own mythical, legendary game that can never be found. My copy of Metroid Prime for the Switch finally came in.
77.
I'm convinced that doesn't exist.
32 gigs of RAM.
So I brought it up.
Yeah, you guys can read.
That's proper to do, yeah.
32 gigs of RAM? That's crazy, man. Mine's only got 24 on it, and I thought that was insane.
Yeah.
Mine is 7.
I've got a 3070 as well, with those same exact specs. I believe in the dream.
All right.
I believe in all the
back?
dreams, in every dream.
So what are we talking about, fellas, tonight?
I have no idea.
We were going to talk about GoBots because I've recently found a GoBot in my I was cleaning some stuff out and I found Rescue.
I have a question. You guys,
look how fast he transformed. It's almost like he's easier than a transformer.
This is a perfect question. I've actually had this question forever, and I finally have a legit best place to ask it.
Okay.
Is
this the best place to ask anything?
I'm just trying here.
To bring back the flamingo.
I feel like you're doomed for disappointment here.
No, I actually think I'm going to get like too much of an answer. I was curious. GoBots, was that a response? Was that like the poor man's Transformers, like response to Transformers, or was it like a legitimate? They had it planned.
It came out first.
It came out. It had its own cartoon. It came out just before Transformers came out. It wasn't very long.
Yeah,
but it did come out slightly before.
Transformers is the Oreo for the GoBots Hydrox, if you will, because Hydrox is first and Oreo ripped them off.
Are you sure?
One became more popular. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, no, I know the Japanese GoBots, the figures that the GoBots are based on. Some of
it was a Tonka bought them for over here.
Tonka brought them over here, but I thought Transformers launched before GoBots launched. The cartoon and the films.
I think we looked this up one day, and at least in the States, GoBots launched first. Now, Diaclone was what they based Transformers off of, and I don't know. I haven't looked at the date when that launched. So that may have launched in Japan before GoBots, or right around exactly the same time. But I think they spent a little bit more time trying to get Transformers to market along with, because they had all the robots and stuff, but they didn't have any kind of story or anything like that to go along with them. It was just a bunch of figures. So they wanted to have a cartoon and a cohesive story to kind of go along with it and decide who were the good guys, who were the bad guys, because they didn't know any of that. The other reason I know this is I watched, there's a really good Netflix documentary on Transformers called The Toys That Made Us.
The Toys That Made Us, yeah.
Series. So they do a great episode on that, and they do an amazing episode on He-Man on there if you're into those. So it's a great place to catch some knowledge and some of that. They don't cover GoBots, however. I did some digging on that after DJC had to mention GoBots at one point.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure which one hit the States first. I just knew I had some of both and preferred Transformers.
Yeah.
I love both, but I was deep into GoBots, from the cartoons to the toys to the command center to the super GoBots to the puzzler to the. I went all out for that. By the way, yes, there's a 007 game that came out for Intellivision. Casey just picked one up, and as a matter of fact, I got a picture of that. I got to take it from my phone though. Hold on. But
so
meanwhile, I had no idea any of them existed. I was all on team Strawberry Shortcake. So you guys and your robots.
Good call. Good call.
Strawberry Shortcake.
I
like the apricot
one. I was Team Care Bear.
The apricot one that blew the kisses. I had a girl cousin. She had all those. I brought over He-Man. She had all the Strawberry Shortcake. She had all the Strawberry Shortcake.
Yeah.
Voltron and Transformers. Yeah, dude.
Voltron, in my opinion, kicks the butt
blows them out of the
water. Well, that's just a given.
Voltron was an amazing start. What I liked about Transformers is we got more combiners, right? That's clearly where they got the idea for the combiner, was Voltron. Right? Like no question. That's where that idea came from.
And then Voltron went and bought the rights to the other unrelated show that became Vehicle Voltron.
Yeah, that one was weird. Like, I don't mind the actual Voltron for that, but there were so many vehicles.
Well, there were so many Japanese cartoons of giant robots being put together by small vehicles, slicing things with a sword. You could pretty much, I think they also, was it Dalrigger or Dalrugger or something was the name of there was a second one that had like 6 arms and connected, but it broke into like 3 individual robots. That was the one that Matchbox series called Voltron 2.
I think that was called Fever
I'm not
Dream.
familiar with that one at all. I know two.
Not.
I know 2 of the main Voltrons. And supposedly there was a female modeled robot Voltron that I've never really seen pictures of. But there's
You've
the
seen
lion
the
one and the
GoBots,
lion
though.
one and the vehicle one. And then when they revisited on Netflix, one of the things I loved about what they did with that, other than the style of Voltron and that one, which I thought was a great revamp, was the fact that each one of them could form the body and it would change the weapon layout and abilities of Voltron. I thought that was a really cool concept. I just wish they could have executed that in the toy somehow.
There was a lot of things I thought, like, you could tell the toys were a lot, you know, there was always difference between toys and cartoons, but like as a kid, I understand because like we used to, okay, I found it here. Hold on.
How did Voltron not?
There was no difference between Rubik the Amazing Cube and the Rubik's Amazing Cube. I mean, they were the same exact experience.
And I have no idea
as much
how
fun with
Voltron
both.
didn't get a game. I have no clue.
Which is about 30 seconds and then throw something at the wall.
By the way, this is look at this is Casey's package that he opened. He got Spider-Man and James Bond for Intellivision.
I love the cover art for that Spider-Man. That's phenomenal.
I know, right?
The 007 one's okay. It's kind of generic 007. That's
so
Spider-Man
envious of
hot.
Casey's package every time. Every time. No, that looks
but
good.
to
Dude, I almost
question,
The games aren't bad either.
Yeah, but to answer your question, I don't.
I
know
love to
how
see that Parker
Voltron
Brothers
didn't
style.
Get a game. It does have a VR experience game that I think is on Quest, but that's the only game.
Yeah,
that
no,
I
there's
know
a
of for
Voltron game for
Thomas.
PlayStation VR also. It's a bag of poop.
Later one was
Hey,
pretty
Thomas.
cool. I thought Psykill was a little too on the nose, but a fun figure. I had both him and Leader One.
No, John, it's the Hydrox is the original, but yeah, that is pretty funny though. It is considered more. It has more natural ingredients, and it actually tastes like cream. And the cookie's actually more dark chocolate. I literally went down a YouTube rabbit hole on the whole history of Hydrox versus Oreo, and I didn't realize how insane it is. You thought Tabs fans were insane. Well,
wait, is Hydrox more natural?
Yes.
No.
Hydrox sounds like a chemical that would turn you into a Ninja Turtle.
Contains
does,
non-hydrogenated
hydrogenated
oils, which the Oreo has more. Oreo's more chemical. They're not complete. Hydrox isn't like any cookie. It's got other preservatives and stuff, but it's a lot less.
Thought that was a good name.
You've got to put yourself back in like a 1906 frame of mind because they thought like every chemical would be good for you and like natural detox.
I didn't know it was that long.
So
ago.
this is
1908 actually.
Yeah,
when it came out. That's where they tried to do their formulation after. There's a great documentary on YouTube about it. I'm over that Hydrox Oreo drama, right?
And yet I'm just getting started.
Sounds cleaner. Yeah, that was their whole reason. So get this, another weird thing before we finally
you eat a whole sleeve of Hydrox, you'll find out what gets cleaned out.
So like that little stencil, which Oreo ripped off, the ridges, the stencil, they ripped off everything. So like then they changed the name in the center. So the Hydrox looks exactly the same. The vines going around, the little plant vines that are like the stencil on these cookies, is actually a plant called Orion something, and that's where they got the Oreo name. So they ripped that off from Hydrox too. And then anyways, the whole reason for the word Hydrox was because everybody wanted pure, cleaner ingredients. So they're like, what's cleaner or pure or cleaner than water? So they took hydrogen and oxygen, which is what water's made out of, and they kind of combined it and called it Hydrox. Really weird, but
it does sound like a cleaner though. He's absolutely correct. It sounds like a cleaning product and not a cookie.
Well, it can clean my taste buds anytime.
Oh, you.
Hydrox t-shirts coming soon, available nowhere. Kenny Omega enters WWE, really? That's weird. Then you need Hydroxycut to lose the weight. Nice. But anyways, we actually have some topics.
No, I don't do that here.
But there's some news about this going on. Funko Pop's going to the dump. What is this? E.T. the extraterrestrial all over again? I don't even know what's happening here. Nick, what's going on with this?
I think Brab is the expert on this, but
okay, well then we'll go with Brab.
No
one knows. Moving on.
What little I read on this was
I'm happy
storing them in containers and in the warehouses, and they had not moved in such a long time that it was costing them more to store them than it would be just to get rid of these things entirely. So their solution, instead of like sending these things out to stores where they may just sit on the shelf,
Right.
or cut the cost of them pretty severely, is just to dump them in a landfill, kind of like the ET carts back in the day.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were they certain ones that weren't selling? Were they like that Panda Sub bobbleheads or something?
I don't know, Reb. Do you remember which
up.
ones they were talking about specifically?
I did not hear that they were holding on to them for a long time. I heard that they were basically ramping up with the pandemic. They estimated that there would be greater demand than there actually was. People were sitting around wondering what to do with their free time, and they were getting a lot of video games, buying a lot of stuff online, getting a lot of cheap collectibles like Funko Pops. So they just overestimated the market, and they overestimated by $30 million worth of product, which I think Funko Pops go for like $15 or so a pop. So you're looking at maybe 2 million boxes.
Yeah, about $15. And the crowd is basically saying they mass produced too many of them.
Yeah.
And especially the ones that nobody wanted, and it was basically a surge because of the pandemic, like you were saying. So they're pretty much confirming that.
They went from like net revenue of like 7-8 years ago. They were like $250 million a year net revenue. Now they're like $1.4 billion a year net revenue from these things. So, I mean, they're just seeing nothing but up in the future. And, you know, that eventually at some point, all of these things plateau. Eventually people's tastes move on. Yes, you can continue to make Funko Pops of everything out there, but I just found it interesting that 40 years after the Atari dump, we're still companies find it in their interest to, you know,
bury the desert,
to dump something in a landfill or out in the middle of the desert.
Am I stupid, or what does that do for the company when they could have made at least something off?
It's a write-off. It's a tax write-off.
Yeah,
so they get to claim a loss. So they're taxed at a lower rate because they don't have all those profits that they're claiming. They get to claim that loss. It goes back in the tax code a long way where it's there to encourage companies to be able to take risks and not to, you know, lose the farm because they have a bad year. So it's there to kind of insulate them. But you have a company like this that's making, you know, like I said, $1.3 billion in revenue last year. I don't think they spent $1.3 billion in creating little plastic Funko Pops. They've profited a good deal, and yet they overproduce. They make a mistake, and they're just going to bury all that stuff in the desert as opposed to, you know, donating them. I mean, yeah, they're collectibles. They're boring. I don't know like how many children's hospitals are going to love these, but you have struggling toy shops that might love to get a shipment. You have schools that might have an art design.
Give some toys for tots, man.
Exactly, man. Make somebody's Christmas. I mean, there's so many, probably Ghostbusters and Ghost Stoppers and
give them to like a local school that has like an art program and say like, we want you to come up with like, what's the most creative things you can come up with this and create something new out of this, or
let's put them in the
recycle the things. Yeah.
Donate them to
Ukraine. I don't know if that's going to help them right now.
Make houses for Burning Man in the desert out of Funko Pop boxes.
I wonder if aliens will one day, once we've perished, come to this land and they start digging and then they find what they believe is a fair representation of what humans look like.
or future generations dig these things up and they think it's some sort of ancient idol that we worship. They're
gonna think we look like them. Giant heads, beady eyes, little gray weird figures. The size of their craniums, they must have been brilliant.
unless they're like alien Funko Pops, and it's like,
then they see our tweets.
they're us.
I mean, they look really normal. Obviously, this is what people look like. Like, there's
honestly when these things first came out,
straight Keanu.
When these things first came out, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a competing product called Mugs.
So great.
That's familiar.
That I thought was a lot neater looking, and
what was it called?
Mugs. MUGGS.
Well, they've got like 8 or 9 different lines that they compete with themselves now. They basically own this whole part of the market, and they have
that Deadpool one is similar to some of the ones that I had. They were I thought they were a little bit more articulated. You could do a little bit more with them with the face because of the shape of it. You could paint.
There's a lot of coffee mugs too.
They look like 3 points of articulation.
Yeah, they had some articulation,
head and shoulders,
whereas Funko Pops basically have none for the most part. So I thought they were a little bit better product, but Funko Pop managed to get so many licenses that people tended to enjoy
everything.
those more, right?
Sneed knows.
So it's kind of like Nintendo in the 80s, right? They did a lot of third-party deals. They got a lot of people on board, and then nobody was really going with mugs except for Hasbro with Transformers and G.I. Joe.
Those are the Easter Island ones, yeah.
And then eventually they moved over to Funko Pop, and Funko Pop's got that license now too. So
yeah, we should just bury all these like half berries so just the heads show up like in the desert.
There's some neat ones out there of these. I just don't really collect them. Like I've got a couple of them sitting around the house because Nicole thought they were neat, but that was
I have a Mr. Potato Head, like it's called Potato Pops or something, but it's Freddy Krueger as Mr. Potato Head. And it's like Pop Taters is what it's called.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. Yeah. Didn't they do like a Jason?
And I have one Funko Pop, which is a Nightmare, which is Freddy Krueger, an actual Funko Pop. That's the only. I don't collect Funkos, but I collect tons of Freddy Krueger stuff.
I collect all kinds of things already. I already do like Masterpiece Transformers and G.I. Joe classified figures.
Still in the paper bag. I
don't need Funko Pops on top of that. I just don't. I already have too much stuff I collect.
He's already married. He's one. He can collect nerdy stuff. It's cool.
I can. I do it out of my own. I do that out. The way we have our account set up is we have an account that takes the bulk of our money, and that's what we pay our bills out of. And then all the other money we pull out, which is sort of like an allowance for each one of us each paycheck, we can do whatever we want with it, and that's okay because it doesn't affect the house or anything else. So that's how we manage it. She buys Legos, I buy this stuff.
I'd like to know.
Question.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I quickly. I just want to know what it looks like when these giant semis pull up and dump trucks, and
I have no idea.
And people are like, what are they digging? And all of a sudden, they just see all these little bobblehead, whatever those things are, Funko Pop figures just go into and then they just go over there like, what? Just what? Like,
yeah, I feel like there's something better you could do with these in the long run. At least some of them.
It's PVC. You can recycle that.
Millions of those things.
Yeah,
that as a plastic can be recycled 8 times.
And somebody in chat had already mentioned recycle them.
Yeah, and, I don't know where in the recycle process.
Very cool.
That's playground equipment. Melt them down and make them into like the soft, spongy plastic on a playground. Make them into the plastic jersey barrier, so that the cars crash into that.
And then after all, there's a guy in the back like, what if we just, I don't know, buried in the desert? And everyone's like, hire this man.
Never know
this man.
Make them into microplastics and just dump them into the ocean. That's another option.
Whatever is the worst possible thing.
The sea turtles love to swallow those.
Burn them. But I had a couple questions for you guys around this one. One is like, we collect all this stuff, and it's not going to last forever. Some of the stuff that I collect that is, from the 50s and 60s, the plastics from them from that time are deteriorating. The stuff that is like Bakelite from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, that's deteriorating. I've got like old wax cylinders and piano rolls that are deteriorating. This stuff isn't meant to last forever, but now we're like making stuff out of these plastics that really do last a very long time. Is there any benefit? Is there any, I know at one point when television brought out the physical products, Tommy had made a point about like the packaging is biodegradable. So like if this ends up in a landfill, 10 years later, it's going to be, composting. You think of that as like a public good, there's something that's non-profit driven motive. There's some value there that a company is putting into, okay, if these don't sell, it's not an issue. It's going to go away. Do we care that companies are making this stuff and not really?
That's why when I go to the beach, I throw this right in the water. I know it's going to go back to
only after I punch dolphins.
Well, to be honest, Rabbit, is kind
dolphin
of
puncher coming soon.
And the other problem with it is plastics come from essentially petroleum byproducts and stuff like that too. So you're still using oil and things like that to produce all these things. Now, some companies have started taking a more ecologically friendly approach to this. Lego's done that somewhat by starting to make their bricks out of sustainable like plant matter, right? And
Right.
they'll biodegrade easier if they go into a landfill. They won't last
Right.
for like freaking eternity.
But they're not going to biodegrade if you're like playing with them and they're in your toy box for 50
I don't
years.
think you have anything to worry about because everyone is moving towards digital and owning nothing. So I think you can not worry about any of this.
Oh, are you talking about our next product?
We're talking about an actual topic?
Our topic,
well,
I should say.
Look at that segue.
Boom!
Delivered.
Playing or collecting.
And yet answering Rab's question. And yet answering.
You
the hat trick.
That's
the
why
hat
we
trick,
invite
sir.
you on here.
Thank you, sir. Oh, thank you.
Shave the whales is what
well
my
played,
place.
sir.
No, I mean, I have to say, as the least eco-friendly, knowledgeable guy on the panel, I would love. I can't see how it hurts to have products that you have some. You're thinking a little forward as far as how is this going to affect living nature. So yeah, I like the idea of biodegradable. Oh, that's
if it's living nature, you should walk up to it and punch it.
Well, no, but that's me.
Michigander. Only if it's a horse.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of a problem with punching dolphins. It's a weird fetish. I can't.
You have your limits, yeah.
It's one thing to stab and punch horses that are not real and be outraged, but dolphins, that's where you draw the line.
I'm so waiting on Peter to come in here and just cancel the show.
I'm just with friends on the beach, and I'm like, is that a mother effing dolphin? He just kind of does that. Let him go with it. It's. Oh, man.
Chicken
I think that's what happened when he saw them hearing all those.
Sorry, I keep going back to the South Park episode where they framed the dolphin and the whale. It was really the chicken and the cow.
Right. Imagine how beautiful Red Dead 2 is with all the blades of grass and the horses.
It's beautiful. I mean, the way
the horses are just beautiful. They just, they look so lifelike and realistic. It's like
the really walking physics, or
you want to run right up to them and give them a nice hard pet. Anyway, I'm not going there. All right.
Well, without the payoff, that just made no sense.
Yeah, it's too far in. If I would have split that up into smaller videos, it's just.
I see.
I'm
first.
Sorry.
I think I attacked those zombies washing clothes. But anyways, playing or collecting. Now I know, Nick, this is one I knew you really want to talk about. I'll let you start with this because you're right in the middle of eating.
I think the idea is I kind of got this from an article I saw the other day that a lot of people do collecting just for the nostalgia factor, like they're chasing part of the youth, part of the memories of the games that they had, ones that they played with their family, play with friends, and things like that. Some people just collect just to collect them. They like to see them on the shelf. They like them all lined up in neat little rows. And some people collect more or less just to be able to play games that they remembered from their past or ones that they missed, and they genuinely think that the gameplay from the older games is better than like modern games. So this brought to mind a couple of discussions. One, is there anything that we can learn from like old gameplay mechanics that we could apply to new gameplay mechanics as far as streamlining and making them less complicated and more fun? Which is kind of what the Amico is all about, really.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, mobile. And mobile.
Yep.
And how many people are just collecting games because they just want to see the complete collection on their shelf? And how many people are really getting these because they actually want to put them in and play them, right? Because all these things, including the cards, have a shelf life at some point, right? To kind of.
And what's the age too? I'd love to discuss that too. Like where we?
I have no
what's
idea.
The average age of a collector? I would say probably our age.
Right.
Our age,
which is 20.
I thought you meant how long.
Which is obviously 25.
Correct.
So there are discussions that kind of apply to more to our generation and older than the younger generation because they're more weaned on mobile and digital download and just experiences, and games have kind of become a little bit more disposable. And basically because a lot of the content isn't on the disc anymore, it's just kind of on a server and you download it and the disc is basically your key. Now, that transition happened in PC ages ago, but consoles have kind of fended that off until roughly the PS4 generation, right? Even the 360 PS4 kind of had, well, the Xbox One PS4 kind of had a lot of stuff on the disc, but realistically, I would say the majority of the content being on the disc ended right around the era of the 360 and the PS3. And then it's now mostly leasing the content via key than really owning the content. So what happens with the next generation as that goes forward? Like, kind of expands the topic a little bit.
Yeah,
you kind of get the general idea.
I would say just as a starter, just to begin, as far as the question I had even asked, like, like who are these collectors and stuff like that, and I think our generation, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. We have a gravitation towards physical because
wrong.
Like I knew it.
Wrong.
God,
wrong.
These debates are intense, and I have to
got
come
a huge
prepared.
It's wrong.
So, like, I remember as a kid, and a lot of young people would have no idea about this, but there was such an allure to physical products because when you were getting a game, a couple of things were happening. One, we didn't have YouTube or anything like that. We didn't have that. We had basically a magazine, if at best, or the back of the box. And so, like, you'd go to Toys R Us,
and the store.
Yeah, exactly. You'd go to the store, and it'd be just these like little flaps at Toys R Us of the games, and you'd flip them over, and you'd look at each back. And your parents always said you can only get one for like how long a time that you were going to wait for the next one.
13 years.
There was exactly
birthday only, or whatever.
There was this allure of that physical. It held weight to it. It was we're going out. I get to pick one, and I'm looking at all the flaps. And then once you get the little ticket, then you have to go to the little booth, and you have to wait there, and you have to get the game right. So then there was a drive home with the manual, and you'd read through that, and you couldn't wait to play. So, like, we had a whole experience.
You bring up a key word there that doesn't really happen anymore.
Well, that's one.
Everything's on the cart back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Two, a very key thing, a manual.
Yeah.
That hasn't existed in a long time. And that was actually part of the fun part of the ride home. Some people would never look at the manual, but on the ride home, I was always opening the manual and reading the manual because I couldn't wait to find out what was in the game.
This generation today gets car sick very easily. So it's
look at there it is. There it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the flaps. Yeah,
like doing those type of things. This is a PS2 time, but it's basically kind of the same thing.
I mean, on your drive home, you were excited to kind of look at the manual and kind of see what you were getting into, especially a lot of those old like Nintendo games and stuff like that, because half of your instructions on how to play or tips or what was really going on in the game, it was all explained there. It wasn't explained in the game because they didn't have the memory to do that. Yeah. So if you really wanted to understand what was going on, you needed to read the manual.
So, and that's so when you look at that whole, how we were brought up into games, like the physical thing was an experience that not only was just getting it, but was the car ride, was, getting it home. And then sometimes it was that you put your bet in this game and it was terrible, but you know what? That's the only game you got. So you're going to keep playing it until you beat it. You're going to master this terrible game. So today's generation is bombarded with, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but you have a lot of stimulus of YouTube and reviews, and you can get trials, and you have Game Pass and all these things, and quickly accessible games on mobile. Brad, what were you going to say?
Endless apps and mobile and tablets and stuff. They get gaming from 100 different places. They expect it has become like very a la carte, like they have endless choice. So they are not hurting for a game experience. We were hurting for a game experience so much that our parents could give us Tiger Electronics handheld, and we were like, this is amazing. This guy can be on 4 different positions on this screen. This is the limit of imagination.
And now you can download a game for free, like Genshin Impact. That's nicer than like anything that we played when we were a kid graphically. Or you can buy a ton of indie games for the cost of what we paid for one game when we were a kid.
Right.
So the cost of entry has gone lower and lower and lower, which is why I laugh when people complain about $70 on a game. I'm like, do you realize this is another entire discussion we could have, but do you realize the era you live in and how absolutely dirt cheap it is to be a gamer right now? Like, do you have any concept? Like,
but their whole people nowadays, and I'm certainly not saying right or wrong, but people nowadays, growing up nowadays, they don't understand collecting. So I think when you're talking about people who collect, even if it's just people who buy stuff just because they want to see it on the shelves, most likely it is still coming from that place of when they were a kid, they were probably going, imagine if I could have just had all of these.
It's wish fulfillment. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Agreed.
I'm old enough now that I can get all of
it. How many people that do this collecting? And I know a couple of guys, like I know, Panda, you have a really heavy collection.
About
Shark
4,000.
has a really heavy collection. How many times do you actually open those up and play those, or how many times do you emulate them, or buy them in a digital media so that you don't wear out those copies?
I just bury my stuff in the desert, so I don't.
Well, okay,
the best way to do it. You know who else does that? Funko Pop.
Call back for no reason.
Yeah, I like how you came full circle with the topics. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
I try to open up and play as much as I can, but there are times when a system is just it's giving me too much agita. I mean, it's just not running as consistently as it should. Well, yeah, it's outdated or it's just inconsistent, and it just won't keep the signal for more than a couple of minutes, or I don't know what the problem is, and I'm not that adept with troubleshooting, so I'm like, screw it. I'm in the mood for some ColecoVision. I cannot get this thing running, so I've got 2 backups for the times when this thing is not running, but neither one of those are running either. So I'm just going to the emulator and I'll play them that way.
Well, and that's the other thing too. I mean, I know a lot of people that collect physical, but they play through emulation in a lot of cases. They do that because there's
convenient
games.
Yeah.
And they're worried about like putting wear and tear on the laser and components wearing out and things like that, particularly on the newer systems because they wear out quicker.
Which is one of the appeals of the Polymega.
Because there's more moving parts, right? But even when you start looking at the NES and stuff like that, some people just don't want to get them modded. They don't know a way to get them to work on their TV. They don't want to have a CRT hooked up and all this other stuff. So they'll just emulate it instead. So your collection is basically just there so you can see all of them on a shelf, like the same way I would have a bunch of G.I. Joes or Transformers. They're there. They're on the shelf. I don't play with them that much, but I like seeing them there, right?
Yeah, so when it comes to like, and a lot of people are going nuts in the chat about this too. It's both sides too. It's like you want emulation, you like digital's easy, digital's cheaper. But like when it goes back to maybe just obviously I like physical, but like right now, like I
don't think anyone on this panel cares if you like prefer emulation, right? This is not like a. I think we don't care if you like emulation.
Okay, because I lied and I just do everything on a pie. No, I'm just kidding.
I emulate all the time.
I got the
consoles like the Switch and stuff like that. Like I waited to play Metroid Prime. I could have downloaded it and been playing it from the 22nd, but I waited for my physical copy to show up. One, because I had plenty of other stuff to play. And 2, I know Nintendo's track record. They're going to pull the store down. I don't have room to store everything on my Switch that I'd want to store, even with a card. I would rather have the physical item so that I can at least play it in some form down the road should I choose. Rather than and the reason I do that specifically with the Switch is because I know almost all that data is on that card. I don't trust that with the PlayStation 4, with the PlayStation 5, with the Xbox One, the Xbox Series. Most of that data is not on the CD I'm getting, right? So a lot of times I have the editions where I can get the physical version if I want, but that's more or less just because what sale's happening when, not because I care which method I get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, going back, like I think for me, I love the physicality of stuff from my childhood. Like in television, to be honest, North American TurboGrafx 16 would be the only 2 systems that I want complete physical games, and I would actually play them, like the physical games. If it's possible. Like I said, I got that LTO flash now, so that saves wear and tear on opening and closing all these cardboard boxes. Plus, they're all in protectors. But as far as like other gaming systems, like we're talking like disc gaming, like when you have like, I'd love to get a Dreamcast. Am I going to get every single thing physical? No. If I could find an EverDrive for that or something plug-in that I could run off my Dreamcast, yeah, I would do that. My TurboGrafx 16, because it's so darn expensive, I got an EverDrive for that for all the Hue cards. I used to have a full collection, but do I have millions of dollars to buy PC Engine or TurboGrafx? No. So I will emulate that. Now, when it comes down to Sega and NES, I'm only interested in collecting physical for the games that I actually liked or played or wanted growing up. So it's like, that's why I think I'll prefer that in physical, but anything else I have no problem doing emulation on, or as long as it plays like the physical. Now,
well,
I would also like something that has more HDMI. Most of the systems I want to play are usually RCA or even RF, you know, so it's really, it's way easier to plug in like I have this Game Station Pi that I can plug in that has like every 16-bit and 8-bit system on it. So I could plug that in and it's easy to share with people on YouTube. So that's where I'm at with it.
So it's good advertising your piracies.
Absolutely. And I only play stuff I own.
Well, and part of this kind of goes back to as well, when you mentioned the Dreamcast, being able to do like say an EverDrive on that is very hard because it's a CD. It doesn't have any card slot or USB.
Plus, I've heard you can burn discs pretty easily. I heard
so you would end up burning a bunch of discs in order to be able to play those and getting them to run that way. Now, TurboGrafx, Saturn, etc., those that have like a physical card slot, those you can do EverDrives for. And those work great. And no problem with EverDrive if you want to use your original hardware.
The Pro's out. Dude, the Pro is out. I'm going to buy that. That'll play all the TurboGrafx CD.
Nice.
I'm freaking out.
A lot of people will use...
Get that.
Show's over.
Show's over, folks. I got to go buy that. We're going to... Turbo Tuesdays is back.
Turbo Tuesdays is back. The Flamingo is back. Go ahead, Nick. You were saying?
A lot of people will just emulate because they don't... Even with the EverDrive, they don't want to put the wear and tear on the physical hardware because it's got a finite amount of time before it's going to like have problems. You either need to find somebody who's really good at repairing these things and can find modern components that are compatible with the old components, or it's just going to die, right? At some point.
Well, that's heavy.
These things are going to stop running. Well,
heavy.
Just a fact.
Is there a problem?
You really brought down Tech Tuesday tonight, dude.
I totally brought the downer tonight. You guys are welcome.
That's another thing I need to get is better cables for some of these systems, like S video is possible through on the 3DO, and I'm running friggin' RCAs through an HDMI mod, which is just turning it into a crap picture where I could actually run S video direct, you know, through the capture, and it would be beautiful looking as best as it could. And so there's different options you can do stuff with. I also have an HDMI plug-in that plugs directly, and I forgot when I got this, but for my original Sega Genesis, like my Model 1 Sega, it actually plugs into the back and it goes right HDMI out to the it's like one full cord. And it looks beautiful on a flat screen, you know, not that you'd probably want to play that on CRT, but you know, if I got a bunch of flat screens, yeah, I'm going to use it on that.
I want to play it on an oscilloscope.
Agreed.
I want to play it on a projector. I used to have a projector that I played it on in the basement, even when I moved here, but it took so much room to like, you'd have to have like a corner blocked off with like 10 feet of space to make it giant on the wall. And then you're like, well, I have stuff in that space, like games.
I mean, part of this problem is being solved by third-party people that are basically making consoles that are HDMI and new consoles that will essentially play these old cards.
Yeah,
right?
It's like small.
So, I mean, there are some solutions to this problem at least in the short term, right?
Do you think this thing
some solutions? I mean, for the systems, some, but I mean, for you know, the patents on those old systems don't last as long as, say, copyright, which is going to last for, you know, like 75 years plus the life of the author plus another 200 years because, you know, we're going to defend this intellectual property until like we're all gone and our grandkids are gone. Yeah. But I mean, that becomes a problem where you
just God forbid somebody preserve Nintendo's intelligent work. But you great mascots and stuff after they die.
But you do have these systems. You do have these formats that are not being currently addressed. I mean, Sony is not making anything compatible for PlayStation 2 or PS3 or the original PlayStation. Nintendo's not doing anything for its old systems. I mean, every once in a while, who's going to go like maybe Ubisoft or something going to make like Just Dance or something for the Wii, but otherwise. Outside of like a limited run games or some of these old companies, you don't have too much that are like republishing. I saw earlier comments come up that said like, yeah, retro gaming is just too expensive. It's just too expensive to do this. And there's no reason why it needs to be so expensive, except these companies sit on the licenses. They never reissue. They never approve, or they rarely approve any other company to go out and put, I understand like you not wanting to put Super Mario Brothers on any other platform other than the Switch, but there's no reason why you're not reapproving Karnov on, the old NES or some of these old systems that aren't easy to get. I mean, is the market big enough for that? Probably not. I mean, it's very niche. It might be more expensive, but it would help with the pricing of some of this stuff to see some of this stuff come back and be able to repurchase some of it, or, maybe.
Well, and part of the question comes down to how well does this stuff run on a modern console on an LCD screen? Because essentially, at that point, you're kind of doing emulation. It's just
there's the purist
emulation, right?
There's a purist audience that are going to be like, oh, this doesn't run as perfectly as it does on this old CRT and this old system. There's a purist audience, and there's an audience that just wants access. There's an audience that is not comfortable, doesn't know enough of their way around emulation. I mean, people are not going to put up where they're getting their ROMs from and how to download it, and whether or not what is a safe download or not. You've got to kind of navigate the internet with people who are not really willing to tell you where to go. There's still a lot of kind of dancing around some of this stuff to get access to some of these old titles.
Right.
Karnov's a bad example because it's so inexpensive, but there are,
Is Maniac Mansion really that expensive?
Ones.
You got your little Samson, which is crazy expensive. Turtles, which I've seen run as high as $3,000 for a graded copy and stuff.
I agree here with this. That Blitzkrieg saying
a limited run has been very bad about doing this, and collecting in general has become such a big market. It's and I've heard a couple people complain about this. It's almost destroyed the toy market because it's made it to where people our age and slightly younger are now heavily into collecting these things.
They market towards the kid-alt audience.
Right. They're marketing it towards adults, and they're not making anything for kids for the most part.
So if your kid wants to get into G.I. Joe, good luck, because they're like $19 a pop just for one figure.
Right. Even the Super 7 retro reaction ones, which are dog crap compared to the original ones, are like $10-15 a piece.
We consider original G.I. Joes the little plastic ones. Like obviously the originals were the big tall. Like,
I'm talking about when they shrunk them down to the 3.75.
60s G.I.
The articulations.
I guess they were moved on from that.
The 1916 ones count, but they're not the ones that most of us grew up with, right? I grew up with it when they were repopularizing them. Everybody had their own outfits and their own cool code names, and you had.
I had a lot of bearded action
Dolphin Puncher.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That guy.
Horse and Round. He did roundhouse kicks to horses. Horse and Round.
He's the one guy in the squad that like always regret recruiting. He's like,
I had a lot of posts.
And those are the ones that they're reissuing.
What up, Dean?
Audience as adults scaled up, right? So, and they're doing that with games now too. That's why Limited Run is making such a killing. They're totally playing off the late 30s,
mid
40s and up.
Expensive, man.
Basically group of people that want to recapture that nostalgia that had these things on it, because the generation before us, the boomers, like toys weren't as big of a thing. They had some G.I. Joes and stuff, but it wasn't as big of a deal for them, right? When toys really started getting
before the boomers,
right around the boomers and before, they didn't really have as many toys, right?
Well, no,
big
before Mattel came around, they didn't even like market toys year round. They didn't market toys. I mean, the toy marketing budget might be like $500 a year for something like Mattel or a Knickerbocker Toys. You sold them at Christmas or Hanukkah gifts, and then you picked up a toy for like a birthday present, but that was it. It wasn't an industry.
Right. And then when you started having things from like Kenner and the Star Wars figures, which just flew off the shelves, that kind of started opening a lot of people's eyes to what
Barbie and all of her accessories.
Barbie and all that. And those started opening up people's eyes to what this
My cousin had a Barbie.
G.I. Joes.
Yeah. Well, the first one of those realistically was the Star Wars figures between them and the G.I. Joes, right?
He-Man and Beastman had quite the affairs with Barbie when I went to play
last night.
Yeah. Last night. Okay, you're right. You got me.
No, an hour ago when we saw the flamingo on cam.
Yeah, you were finishing up the little adventure.
So to wrap this back to video games, I mean, they're kind of doing the same thing. They're just marketing a lot of these 8 and 16-bit games towards us as they re-release them or the collections come out, so that we can play them on the modern system on emulation and we can own a physical copy again. And this could lead into a whole other discussion of, do you count those as legitimate Switch games? Is that part of your collection now? When you go to get a complete Switch collection in 10, 15 years, is that going to have to be part of that collection or not?
Is it going to be accessible?
Right. Will it be accessible? Because they only make like 5,000, 10,000 of these things, right?
I just think they need to be focusing on, that's what I was saying to Rab before. I think they need to be focusing, as much as I'm not a big fan of Game Pass and a lot of other stuff, they need to be making these games accessible on Switch, on PlayStation, etc. Because I'd ask the panel, how many movies from the 40s, I happen to watch a lot of them, but how many movies from the 40s do you guys watch? The answer is probably none. So the same is going to be said about games with a generation raised on mobile phones. They don't care about Karnov. If you start letting them play that on the Switch and on PlayStation and all those other services, which is what they're going to be growing up with, then they're going to be exposed to all those old Intellivision games, those old Atari games. But if it's just constantly communicating to people like us who want this physical, making new systems to play those things, that eventually has a literal shelf life that won't last that long. So they need to start making a push to start opening that attention to.
You need to kind of expand and evergreen your audience, because otherwise they're going to age out of. You're going to age out of an audience to sell to.
As I would say, in 30s to 50s movies, I have just recently sat down and watched all the original Universal monster movies. Mm-hmm. And they're fantastic, by the way.
Yes, they are.
Now, my least favorite, I want to say, was probably Phantom of the Opera. The Mummy was a little on the dull side, particularly coming off of Frankenstein.
But did you watch that on a Netflix or something?
Oh, no. My buddy bought physical copies of them on a Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
Sat down and watched them.
Oh, but imagine, obviously, if that was accessible on Netflix and something, you'd have a much easier time being exposed.
I would have much easier time being exposed to it, and I might have sat down and watched them because I was curious to watch those, and I honestly wouldn't mind sitting down and watching all the Hammer films as well, because I think watching those classic horror movies kind of gives you a good window into where horror and action and all this other stuff went. They all kind of started there, and there's a lot of cool techniques in there, like the Invisible Man. Some of the tech to make him invisible, and that's freaking amazing. Creature of the Black Lagoon, how they got him in that suit and swimming, I have no idea, but it's amazing to watch on screen.
Yeah, how do you green screen on black and white?
Right.
With devil magic. They use
there's a lot of really cool stuff there that they did that was done so early that it kind of, for lack of a better word, brings out my inner kind of geek, which is kind of why I started my Geek Story channel, to go, how? How did this happen? When did this happen? And how did you do it? Right?
Yeah. The very first animation that was ever done was like a trick. It was like a guy with a paper, and he was like putting the guy's hat on and giving him money and taking stuff away, and it's like a face that was moving, like the incredible incredible animated face or something. I don't remember the name of it, but I mean it's they've been doing tricks in film and cinema forever. So it's good to see kind of how that all evolved.
When a host has lost complete control of the show is when they've resorted to making sound effects and playing with action figures.
Playing all the toys.
We have a conversation? Yes.
Yeah.
You talking about this GoBot here? That's better than Transformers?
I noticed.
He flies,
is not, sir.
Sir,
me and you are going to have beef online.
Yeah, when the action figures fly too. When the action figures start spooning, just cut the cord. Chat, you guys are free to go at any time after.
Me and DJ C are going to have like an online beef. I'm going to bring back my Geeks Podcast channel just to go to war with him on GoBots versus Transformers. That's going to be the only reason it will exist, to go to war with him against GoBots. I'm
going to be eating Hydrox cookies, playing with GoBots, and my TurboGrafx 16. Oh my!
So
goodness.
we managed to go almost an hour just on the collecting topic, so that's good.
That's
so at least it was
really
an
good.
interesting topic so far.
Well, I was showing all. That's the other thing is I was showing.
We barely even touched on chat on this one because they've been going crazy on this.
Oh no, I've been highlighting that. Like they've been loving this topic. Like this is.
You have been slacking and playing with toys. Don't.
Yeah, what are you talking about? I've been highlighting chat, i.e., playing with my action figures and making sound effects.
Psykill or Leader 1? I like Psykill, but Leader 1 I always thought was kind of
what the hell
bland, but I loved the evil. Mine was Buggyman,
GoBots.
Jeeper Creeper, Psykill, Screamer, all those. Like everyone on the evil side was.
What, you didn't like Scooter?
Hey, what's going on, Leader 1? He was like the Slimer. He was like the
Orko.
Who's the guy from Thundercat? Snarf. He's like the Snarf. Everybody had to have a little Weasley looking creature and all the things, and Scooter was that Weasley little creature. Scooter.
Who literally transformed into an actual scooter. Like, the names were so on the nose with GoBots, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a crappy like robot that just transformed into like a one roller skate or something, just something stupid, something lame.
Leader 1 would go from a robot to a jet. Psykill would go from like a robot to a motorcycle, but it was
that's awesome.
Yes,
it was a really lame transformation.
You had the Rock Lords, and
I had a Rock Lord. You know what it turned into? The most fun thing to play with as a kid.
A wrench?
Freaking rock.
Oh.
I went, oh.
What was fun about those was the robots actually looked kind of cool. I mean, them transforming into rock was kind of lame. I mean, but hey, in the robot form was fun. Every kid kind of loved it when they started doing like a various different Insecticons for Transformers. Those were fun.
I thought you said every kid loved it when they started playing with the Rock Ords. I was like, no, they were boring.
That was
it's very disappointing.
I had a bunch of the Rock Lords. I had fun with them.
Some of them came. What happened?
Did you just kick Panda off the show?
I'm transforming my GoBot.
You totally kicked Panda off the show. I
didn't kick anybody out.
You kicked him off the show.
I don't know who he is, but I do know who Dolphin Puncher 2000 is.
This guy. I hate Dolphin.
Oh my god. I'm gonna have to we're gonna have a highlighted horsing around thing next week.
That'd be great. I'm just looking at these Rock Lords. They're terrible.
Yeah.
I had so much fun with them as a kid, though.
Why?
They had a couple of
I don't know,
them. They had
man.
a crossover into
I had the chrome
too.
one and a gold one, and there was one that was like a bluish metallic. So they look more like jewels than rocks. I brought you
anything that could transform from like one shape to another.
Screamer.
I had a lot of fun with as a kid. Like Transformers was kind of like a gateway drug to get me into GoBots and Rock Lords.
Oh, I do gonna say into meth. Okay.
Well, same thing.
Wow, I did. Oh, Casey wants to know what's Nick eating. You were eating a lot.
It sounded like cat food before. Like it had this scraping.
Sorry, I have been asking.
Watch, it's cat food.
I literally I had.
It's a tin can of fancy geeks.
I had like a mushroom rigatoni dish. It was good.
Oh, was it Crash? I thought it was Screamer. Which one was Screamer?
Crash
was Psykill's sidekick. The one that was like Psykill, and it was like, whoa, dude! It like just ripped your earballs, your eardrums out, and your earballs.
Those earballs.
Those darn earballs.
Doc, my earballs are hurting. Okay, well, here's some Ritalin.
Here's some hydroxy content.
Hydrox.
I thought we were going to have an organized show. That didn't happen tonight.
No. Well, at least we got to go for topics, and I got to play with toys. So
it's a win.
You're
really going to want to watch this on replay.
If I had some Transformers, I would have been playing with us. But I do at least have this to contribute.
Well, that's actually
that cool. Is better than Transformers. Perfect.
I like this thing. This is a cool little Voltron figure.
Do you see? This was my original. This is another thing I found dug out of a box. Look how worn the chrome is. It's like yellowed.
I've got a set of the.
Oh, look at that finger thing. That's awesome.
Cool, right?
Is that
They did a reissue of the Voltron, the original.
This is the original Matchbox that actually was recalled because of lead paint. From,
nice.
And I kept it.
Mine's just the reissue. So
as long as I don't touch that red paint right there, touched it.
And now he's dead.
Right. No, but this is one of my original, the left leg of Voltron. Yep. So, anyways.
What a terrible thing to be that you turn into a foot.
Left leg.
Yeah.
They do, the vehicle force.
I think they actually made a small version of this that became the
Wouldn't it be great if
car version. I never picked it up though. I was a bigger fan of the Lion Force.
I would like one of the lines to be Voltron's dong. It's just an unnecessary dong. A swinging.
That's when it forms. That's what. That's just a tail. Come on, it's a family show.
I said dong.
Yes.
Is it weird that I know that
he didn't say blazing sword?
Yeah.
I showed you guys that, right?
I'm not gonna say which character came to mind for the original
bot.
Voltron Force that would actually would have formed that.
Voltron's pee-pee.
For the sake that it's Women's Day and I don't want to be killed.
That was the blue lion was the princess, Laura. Maybe the little mice flew their one up to the center and it docked.
Sure. We'll go with that.
Space mice.
Exactly.
I feel like we should end the stream before we really do get canceled.
I think we're pretty friendly.
No, we're not.
Do you guys think there's a cap? Do you think what do you guys think will inevitable? I'm not looking for a date. Like, what do you think will lead to whatever the cap in retro market is going to be? What will that be? I'm not saying it doesn't have to be tomorrow. Like in the future, when does it hit its top?
I feel like we should have already plateaued. I mean, when you're charging,
maybe this is it.
I feel like when you're charging over $3,000 for the original Ultra TMNT game, which admittedly I have nostalgia for, and I think is fun, even though it's abysmally hard. If you look at it objectively, that's a terrible Turtles game from an objective standpoint because it feels nothing like the Ninja Turtles, right? It brings none of that nostalgia there from the show, from the comic book. It doesn't bring any of that to the forefront, but it's still like $3,000 freaking dollars.
Wow. Yeah, but it doesn't
be the limit.
The cap is going to be the same thing as it's been for like every other market, which is basically the population that is going crazy for all of this stuff. Basically, aging out of relevance. I mean, right now, the people who are, grew up as children playing the NES, Atari prices are not astronomical, and television prices or ColecoVision prices aren't that astronomical, even though ColecoVision has far fewer product out in the collector space than in television or Atari ever had. They came to market a little bit later, and they came at the tail end. I mean, they launched right as the crash was right before the crash happened, so they didn't get all that product out there. There's not a glut of Coleco games like there is for everything else. There's a few things that there's a lot of, but there's not that much. But you look at the NES, you look at Sega, you look at the Genesis, TurboGrafx, Super Nintendo, that era when the kids of that time frame, and you got to remember back then, yes, there was some adults that were playing, but most of Nintendo's audience, most of Sega's audience was 6 to 16. So by the time that cohort gets to their 60s and 70s and starts looking at, I need to part with this. I have no need. I'm not impressing anyone in my 70s with this. I think then it crashes. I don't think we're going to see it before then. I think this generation is going to hold on to it until they get to retirement age. And then we're going to see prices come down.
Aren't you already kind of seeing a trend on that? Because it seemed like for a while I was seeing a rash of, like, especially YouTubers going, I'm out of retro collecting, I'm selling my collection kind of videos.
Recently,
you're seeing YouTubers doing that.
You're seeing a lot of them let go of their collections now.
What is a lot of them? I see like 4 or 5 maybe big name YouTubers that are doing that. But I don't think
they're also good clicks too.
Yeah,
they are, and some people will do that and then go rebuilding your collection on a budget.
Yeah, which is
and
just
then they'll go back
taking
out
it back from the garage back home to the.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think it's as people who have spent their 20s and their 30s, and as the kidult market has kind of aged itself up into probably late 30s, early 40s, you can still be spending a lot of disposable income on this sort of stuff. As you get into later age and you need money for other things, for your kids, for medical expenses, for houses, for unforeseen expenses, you just tire of it. I think probably in 10 years we see this start to come down. I don't think it's anything over the next couple of years though. And unless the economy
curious to see if it like resurges again. Like you start
I think it has got another.
Like you start to see the younger generation kind of go back, and because there's so many indie games that emulate the style of that era.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's just a matter of time with the accessibility with like the Switch and stuff like that?
No, I think they need
because it's not accessible.
Before
it is on the Switch,
but it's not accessible for them to get into that market. It's so expensive. It has to
not
crash
now,
first.
But as they get older.
Yeah, but if there's no connection to that, in the same way, that's why I asked that 40s movies. If there's no introduction at all to it, then there's no connection. So it'll just
not only
that's
no
why
introduction.
They need to start doing it.
Not only no introduction, but they are more than happy just to have an emulation solution or a streaming solution or something that can give them everything without the cost. They just need access to it. They don't need to have. They don't have that collector mentality that I think this generation on this panel has. They just
and some of it is a collector mentality, and some of it is the fact that, like, I can tell you from playing Ninja Gaiden, like trying to play that with a controller through my Steam Deck, like an external controller, feels very different to just playing it on the Steam Deck, which might feel very different to playing it on the original hardware. There's a tangible difference in how the game feels and flows, right?
100%.
And you either adapt to it, or you want that original experience.
But that's still, I would still argue that's still us talking. Like
it's still kind of a nostalgia thing. But if you show your kids the difference between that and this,
I agree.
Right, that can become a thing. It just depends on again, like what we're talking about, exposure. Right,
100%. That's what they need to start doing more of. That has to be, because again, the average person, even in our age group, will watch a movie on a streaming service where I watch it physically because I like the better. It's technically a better quality picture, but most people don't care. They just go, I could stream it. It's easier for me. I get the idea. So what you're talking about is tangibly being on that system. That is something they have to be introduced to, whether it be through parents, YouTubers, like, Angry Video Game Nerd is a perfect example of that, but they've got to be exposed to it.
Right.
I do agree. Original hardware plays the best on the way it's meant to play.
Well, it's a given. It's like it's not even arguable.
When you go back to certain things like that, so you go back to like something like Punch Out, and I know we'll be getting out of here soon, but Punch Out is one of my Mike Tyson Punch Out, Super any of those NES and Super NES games where you have to have that split-second timing to dodge like a Mike Tyson lightning uppercut.
I always wish they had a dolphin animated. It was like,
you could just punch it, right?
See, part of that gets mitigated a little bit by the advent of FPGA and MiSTer systems, because those are much, much closer to the physical hardware. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of people that are heavy into retro that have the physical systems that will put these things on something like an FPGA system, because it might be like a millisecond off, but it's not enough to hinder the gameplay experience. And it helps them preserve their collection because they're not putting wear and tear on their hardware, on their carts, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, see, I mean, for me, maybe I'm alone here. I have a 4,000 game collection because I thought it was going to get me laid, and it has not worked out, sadly, at all. So, guys, if that's why you're collecting, it's time to pick up a new hobby, like getting out, sunlight.
He's lying. He's trying to keep all the chicks.
So you haven't.
That's it.
That's why I keep it. That's why I haven't got rid of it, because it helps me with that all the time.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Chicks come in and go, wow, look at the size of your
They see the arcade, then they see the bar, then they see all the wrestling collectible figures, and they're like, "You have a Draws sealed and packaged?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. Let me show you the game collection." And then they're like,
and you're like, "Whoa, put your clothes back on."
And
they're like, "Can I just, sit here on the couch?" And no. I was like, "Hold on, we'll go to a different room for that." That's
and then you show them the Barbie collection, and then out the door. They've left.
Sesame Street Little People collection is probably one of my best, but yeah,
so weird and creepy.
I'm not kidding. All right.
So fast.
Anyways, we do need to get out of here, but I want to know what's coming up on Panda Sub 2000's YouTube channel.
Still working on all the episodes that are going to be coming out this year. You're right. I'm not doing anything. But I'm actually it's actually coming along. I'm actually putting up the final scenes now. I'm starting to finish those up. So I'm hoping for, again, as I keep saying, now it's more like end of April or end of May. And whenever these things come out, they're going to be really good. You're going to grab some popcorn, hopefully sit with the family and watch some really fun stuff. They're really long episodes. So thanks for having me on, Chuck. Always a blast.
Yeah. It's always great having you on, man. I appreciate you. Panda tries to entice the ladies with a game collection, but they're too smart for him.
Yep. Which is not hard.
Casey wants to know what project that the Geek Storian is working on.
What an incredible
we have a little
segue.
trailer to show you really quick first.
We might want to go to Rab first, and then we can come back to me.
Well, he's the same as I am. Working eternally.
I'm sorry. What did you say? Would you have this coming up this year on my YouTube channel?
No,
is that what you said?
We're going to you first.
Before your death, what would you like to release?
Yeah, before you die.
Awkward silence. Oh, it's the same. It's the same as it always is. I continue to work and get a little closer, but I'm not getting anything out right now. This is a massive project. So when it comes out, everyone's going to be disappointed because they're like, "Where's the video game talk? I want to know about the video games." I'm going
hell of a way to sell.
It's all GoBots and Hydrox. I get it.
I'm sold. I am now riveted and in for this 80 part saga you have, where it will be part 95 before I see a video game.
Keep sharp objects away from yourself. It's gonna be that dull. Just
yes.
No, I wanted to go to Reb because I came with Show and Tell tonight, and I didn't want to go from. Well, that was kind of neat, or oh my god, what the hell did I just watch? And then on to Rab, and Rab's like, shit, what do I do now?
Language, Nick, language.
But what we do have is a trailer from the Geek Storian that's coming out this Friday on the Geek Storian YouTube channel.
Sort of ended abruptly. So that's okay.
That was good music, by the way. That was good.
Thank you. That was a YouTube audio library special. So yeah, I finally think I have a wrap on the evolution of fighting games, which I've been talking about for a while. It's just taking me.
It's very good. I think
a freaking eternity to get done. Panda got a preview on it because I was using him as kind of a sounding board. What I need to tweak, what works, what doesn't work. I tried a couple of different things that I don't normally do in this video.
Nudity.
Partially why it took a while. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. That'll be coming out this Friday. Right now I have 2 videos out. I covered the rise of MOBA games this week on the channel for the Moment in Gaming History because I thought that was an interesting topic that should be covered while people have a lot of knowledge. Well, it's kind of still newish, so it can kind of be documented to me out there. I feel like having that stuff documented now is nicer than waiting like 30 years to cover it. And then I covered the one that came out today was the largest pinball machine, commercial pinball machine.
Hercules.
Yeah, Hercules.
Hercules. You have a question, Nick.
I played that.
To be honest, other than being able to spam one button all the time, which has already been done, it brings nothing new to the table. I'm sorry. Other than a very cast of really cute, cuddly, slashy characters.
Now, Draws was remember he got paralyzed, but he was part of, wasn't it him in the, oh my God, I'm trying to remember.
Oh, and Chuck, you're talking about wrestling, right?
Yeah, I think it was the big hairy guy that had all the piercings. He came out with Draws, and then Draws they first called him Puke and all that stuff, but now he's like paralyzed from the waist down. But
Chuck, God, is that guy still wrestling? I remember them talking about him like ages ago.
But
Chuck, I can't.
Yeah, go ahead. Anyways,
yeah, this is much more important.
Yes, of course. Seriously.
I can't
show us a 3DO game.
Correct. I can't confirm this, but Chuck, have you heard?
Oh, was he? Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Okay.
Have you
heard?
Might have known. Have you heard that?
Let me interrupt you right there. I'm sorry,
I like it. That apparently someone at the WWE or something, they're trying to get betting legal for WWE matches. Have you heard that? I just heard that today. And I'm like,
sense.
if we're betting on fiction, I would like to make a bet on my series finale that's going to happen. Like, I guarantee I know what's going to happen. Let's make fiction bettable.
I don't think that'll ever happen. There's just no way. No one would trust it. It would just, dude, Dean, why do I not remember Draws coming out originally like that? I remember him as Puke, and I remember him coming out, but I don't remember. You're probably right, man. My brain's probably fried, and I don't remember.
By the way, it's
that.
official. I just looked at the news. This is a real thing. So just letting you know. Legal betting on WWE.
That's nuts, man. That makes, yeah.
Look.
If they could lockbox the betting office.
I mean, if they're going to do Brawl for All and really knock these wrestlers out for real, like they did that one time during the Attitude Era,
look.
Art gun all the way.
I'm all for respecting wrestlers as far as the physicality of their performances, right? People legitimately get hurt in the ring trying to do some of the stunts that they do to make an entertaining show for the audience. But the outcomes of these are not random, guys. This is not an actual competition.
Hey, take care, John. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks for popping in, John.
Yeah, they do. They already work with DraftKings for something, so they must have something bettable.
All I know is if you look right now, everywhere, it's 4 hours ago, 2 hours ago, news is saying that they're pursuing legal betting in 2 states on scripted matches. Everywhere. It's so apparently legal betting on wrestling.
Why not? I mean, you have you.
I think
if you have a buddy that works backstage or something and go, listen, what's happening? Do you know any? Like, I just don't see how if anything gets leaked, they'd have to tighten up crap like in.
I mean, that's the key. That's the key is that
you couldn't let anything get out. There's
gambling based on chance, not on script.
Winning.
I mean, on inevitability.
Yeah, even potions like you can bet on fake predetermined wrestling matches. How?
AEW,
right? I agree.
How?
Potion said that. I agree.
Like that doesn't make any sense.
Wrestling's not fake. Stop saying it's fake.
I don't know if you guys.
But anyways, blah 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 blah. What I have coming up, because we got to end this because we're already 20 minutes over. I want to say that 3DO Thursday should be interesting because I'm going to see if maybe Panda Sub 2000 would like to join me again because I know I want to see more of his 3DO collection. First of all,
I've got a good one if I come.
But I'm going to be playing Gex. I will probably be playing that sometime either this evening. If not, it'll be tomorrow afternoon or so. But anyways, I'll have to get with you. If you can't, then it looks like it'll just be me. But I have some other crazy ones coming up as well. Homebrew show, I'm playing some Beachhead from Intellivision Collector on Friday. So that should be fun. And then I'm going to try to get some votes on what to go next. If I want to go old school, like Wizard of War, Caves of Croz, maybe some Sydney Hunter next time, if anyone knows those. But yeah. But anyways, yeah. Gex coming up.
Gex is a cool
Sounds
game.
like a hoot and
I played a little bit of that. Gex is a lot of fun.
And I gotta ask, Nick, you did venture into the Yair Kung Fu being the precursor to the Street Fighter games and fightable games and games with multiple moves. correct?
Dude, I started. Dude, this thing took me forever because it took me forever.
Because I cannot wait to check that out because I'm such a.
He actually starts with his schoolyard brawl with a guy named Timmy, little Timmy, and it's a little fist fight he had with him. And how
the first game up is a game
right?
that
Right?
you probably
has the crutches, his legs.
To kind of give you guys a little bit of a insight into it. The first game actually isn't even what most people would consider a fighting game now. It was Heavyweight Champ, the original one. And it goes way back, even further than probably the one that a lot of people played that looked a lot more like Punch Out. So it goes back pretty far, almost close to the beginning of the arcade, within a couple of years of the beginning of real arcade games. So it goes back quite a ways, and then things kind of go from there because Ye Air Kung Fu's in there.
Cool.
Shanghai Kid's in there, Karate's in there. There's a ton of games in there, some of which I don't think I had never even heard of until I started doing some digging. And then these things came out of the woodwork, and I'm like, I'm so glad I did this video because I found out about a bunch of fighting games that were kind of had some key ideas that I didn't even know existed until I started doing the digging, which is
some of my favorite.
I love it when I
Rise of the Robots, classic.
Now, Rise of the Robots obviously is the best one ever made. Because of all the just insane graphics. The graphics were, what was that review? The graphics were so good that it interfered with the gameplay. We neither were good. Bullcrap. Anyways, no, my favorite, then we'll get out. My favorite fighting games of all time were Ye Air Kung Fu, obviously Mortal Kombat, Fatal Fury, and World Heroes. Like those are like my tops right there. It's Street Fighter.
You'll have some of those in there. As Neo Geo / SNK is involved a decent amount. Capcom's obviously involved.
Yeah.
Because they.
You got King of Fighters too. You got God, so much stuff.
The King of Fighters, Samurai Showdown.
Samurai Showdown. Yeah, that was my 3DO, one of my 3DO.
Both of those show in there. There's some odd stuff that was like basically PC based that brought some stuff to the table way before I thought it ever showed up on the table. There's stuff like Ye Air Kung Fu, Karate, etc. Mortal Kombat obviously makes a showing for a couple of things, and I know a lot of people don't give Mortal Kombat a lot of credit for a couple of things, but they did a couple of really.
I don't know
why. Most people just saw Mortal Kombat and they thought that Capcom was already doing it better, so they didn't give them credit for anything that they really brought to the table.
You might be right. I'm sorry, you might be right.
I mean, just even from
Karate Champ came before Ye Air Kung Fu.
Yeah, Karate Champ was not as good, although I owned it before and it was fun. But Ye Air Kung Fu, I still have
Karate Champ technically had more moves than Ye Air Kung Fu, but it was harder to play because of the control scheme.
Yeah, the two joysticks were lit, and it was slow.
Yes.
It was more slow instead of jumping around.
It was meant to be methodical and paced. That was the intention with karate.
I enjoyed it while I had it because I got an arcade machine really super cheap. I think I paid $150, which is insane right now because right now it's probably worth like $1,200 or something, But like I got one.
Mike Garcia, I don't think I have anything on way of the fist for this out of what I had. However, if you guys. One of the things I did put in the end of this is if you guys think of anything that I missed on it, I'm more than happy to do a part 2 on it. But from what I could think of and what I could find, this seemed fairly comprehensive as far as, because I'm basically going into when do certain techniques come in? When did archetypes come in? When did stage transitions come in? When did the light bars come in? When did special moves come in? When could you cancel a move into a special move? When could you juggle? When could you throw? Things like that. How did that progress and what built into what? That's kind of the concept of the video, right? Is how these techniques evolved and when did they show up in the games. So that was kind of the main focus, not just a chronological order of fighting games, because that would take me a year to build, honestly.
Have you ever played Dive Kick?
I've heard of Dive Kick. I've not played it. That's a great exercise in simplicity.
Just made it up.
Literally one button.
That's what you got.
What was the one that you had me play on emulate when we were doing the crazy fun times? Was it Last Battle where you just punch stuff? Or no, it was something different. Where you're just punching.
Kicking. Yeah. It was like, what was that? My favorite
Horse
game
Simulator.
ever. That's it.
Horse Simulator, yeah.
Yeah, but whatever it was like you literally it's like called like Punch Master or something. Like you would just punch things or something.
Yeah, you were.
No, it was Kickmaster.
Kickmaster.
That's what it was.
Kickmaster.
And see, on this, guys, I didn't
Kickmaster.
bring in things like Power Stone, and I didn't bring in Smash. I classify those as a different genre. Those to me are more multiplayer brawlers, not core fighting games. They play differently, and those can be their own thing as far as I'm concerned. They're not beat 'em ups. They're like brawlers. They have their own techniques. They have their own sets, and it's a lot more limited in that scope. There's been a lot more of them now, like the Multiverse one and Brawlhalla and stuff like that. But they're still, it's kind of a niche, small, tight genre. There's not as many of those as there are the one-on-one or the team fighters, right? And that's more what I focused on with this video. So if you guys disagree with that, feel free to call me out on it or ask for a video on those. I don't care. That doesn't faze me.
I would just make your own video about it. Just kidding.
Hey, real fast before you head out, I'll never forget one time this is very many years ago in San Francisco. These two guys were really drunk. They were fighting, and one guy screamed fatality. And then as he screamed fatality, the guy just decked him in the head.
That's awesome.
A ton of prayer. It's like reverse fatality. And everyone just
You should have
scattered
just
him.
got combo breaker, bitch.
Yeah, combo breaker. And that guy was me. Nope.
Everybody stop giving wrestling crap. I love wrestling. And
the video comes out
those
this
guys
Friday.
are athletes that put their bodies in the line, and it's not fake. So stop it right now. But I love y'all.
So you guys know the video, like the trailer said, the video comes out Friday. I'm going to be working on the thumbnail tomorrow, trying to get the thumbnail ready because the video is finally done. I didn't have time to get to the thumbnail yet. So I need to work on that tomorrow so I can get that ready. And then technically it's already uploaded. I'm debating on dropping it and re-uploading it just to make the stats more clean because Panda watched it like 4 times trying to give me critiques on it. So I'd like to have like regular metrics on it and have this thing, the normal upload time. Like it doesn't show it's been up for like 5 days.
All of your videos don't have the Pandas watched it 14 times metric?
Well, you know, I mean, if you guys want to put it on loop and just leave it running for a couple of hours, I'm not going to argue. So anyway, it'll be out Friday. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's the second one I've managed to get into my evolution of series, which started out with just the platformers, and I never got back to it because it wasn't super popular when it first launched. It was a lot of time, and I had a similar series, and it was just, there was too much going on. So I want to make a bigger dive into kind of getting that out. It'll be kind of a limited series because there's only so many genres of games. Really, so when it's done, that's cool. It'll have its thing, and it'll be there for people to kind of watch whenever. But that's kind of how I treat all my content. I feel like most of the content I do on that channel is what Panda would call evergreen. It's kind of good to kind of go back and watch from time to time. I feel like it holds up. It's not just kind of like a, what games are coming out this kind of week kind of thing. It's stuff that's talking about things that are going to kind of be there or parts of history or big moments that I feel like were key things that people should remember and know a little bit about so that as you're building your next game or you're doing this and another, you kind of have an idea of where this came from, how far the technology's gone, and start thinking about how can I do this better or what was good about that I could use in this, right? Nintendo's really good about looking back like that. And I feel like the more people can do that, the better things can get overall. Yeah. That's why history's kind of important, right?
Right.
That's kind of why I want to cover it.
Yeah, speaking of history, I mean, the last thing you want to do is throw a bunch of ET cartridges like Funko Pops in the desert and bury them. Anyways, on that note, we are out of here. We will see you next week for more fun topics. Unless there is Amico news, then we will talk about that.
Which is not a fun topic? Come on, it did not sound right.
A dreadful, dreadful topic where everyone will fall asleep.
Anyways, we will see you soon. Thank you so much for all the
support. Guys.
Night, everyone. Thanks.